Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey, everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Tiny People Speaking Through Eyes. In the ancient city of Chang'an, there lived a scholar named Fang Dong. He was talented and quite famous, but his character was frivolous and undisciplined. Whenever he went out, he would follow women who were out for leisure, making them feel uncomfortable and uneasy. As a result, young women would avoid him whenever they saw him. One day, before the Qingming festival, Fang Dong went to the outskirts of the city to have some fun. Suddenly, he saw a carriage passing by, adorned with red curtains and embroidered drapes. Several young maidservants in blue attire were riding horses, following the carriage. Among them was a maid riding a small horse, and she was exceptionally beautiful. As usual, Fang Dong approached to sneak a look. He saw that the carriage's curtains were drawn back, and inside sat a girl around 16 or 17 years old. She was dressed splendidly and exuded a beauty unlike any he had seen before. Fang Dong became mesmerized by the girl and couldn't control his emotions. He followed her, sometimes leading the way, other times trailing behind, for miles on end. Suddenly, he heard the girl inside the carriage calling one of the maidservants and saying, "Lower the curtain. That impudent young man outside has been peeking at me. It's really rude." The maid heard her mistress's words and lowered the curtain, then turned angrily toward Fang Dong and scolded. "My mistress is the newlywed wife of Lord Qi, the governor of Furong City. She is returning to her family to visit her mother-in-law and not some ordinary person's wife. Don't you know how impolite it is to peek at my mistress?" After saying this, the maid jumped off her horse, scooped up some dirt from the roadside ditch, and threw it at Fang Dong. His eyes were immediately covered with dirt, and he couldn't open them no matter how hard he tried. He rubbed his eyes vigorously and finally managed to open them again, but the carriage had vanished. Fang Dong felt a mix of shock and doubt and could only return home disappointed. When he arrived home, Fang Dong felt discomfort in his eyes. He had someone look at them and discovered a thin membrane had grown over his eyeballs. Over the next few days, the membrane grew thicker, eventually becoming as thick as a coin, and a spiral-shaped membrane also formed on his right eye. Worried, Fang Dong sought medical treatment, trying various remedies, but nothing could cure his eyes. His eyesight deteriorated, and he constantly shed tears. Fang Dong felt remorseful and dejected, reflecting on his frivolous behavior that day with deep regret. Upon hearing from others that reciting Buddhist scriptures could dispel misfortune, he decided to find a scroll of Buddhist scriptures and asked someone to teach him how to read and memorize them. At the beginning, Fang Dong would loudly recite the scriptures every day, but he still felt restless and uneasy in his heart. He could only persist with great difficulty. However, as time passed, Fang Dong's restless emotions gradually settled down. Gradually, whenever there was nothing to do in the morning or evening, he would sit in his bedroom with crossed legs, fingering the Buddhist beads while reciting the scriptures. In this way, after persisting for a year, Fong Dong felt that he had completely rid himself of all his restless emotions. One day, he suddenly heard a buzzing sound like that of mosquitoes in his left eye, saying, "Why is it so dark in here? I can't stand it." Another voice responded from his right eye. "Yeah, why don't we go out together and enjoy ourselves freely, venting out your frustrations? How about that?" At that moment, Fong Dong felt an itching sensation in his nose, as if there were insects crawling inside his nostrils. After a while, it seemed like something crawled out from his nose and left through his nostrils. After a long time, that thing returned and crawled back into his eye socket. Once it entered the eye socket, Fong Dong heard voices speaking inside his eye socket. The voice said, "It's been a long time since I went to the garden. The orchids we were nurturing at home have all withered. What a pity." Fong Dong was particularly fond of orchids and had planted many of them in his courtyard. He used to take care of them personally, watering them regularly. However, ever since both of his eyes were blinded by the thick membrane, he hadn't been to the courtyard to water those orchids for a long time. Upon hearing these words from his eyes, Fong Dong hurriedly asked his wife, "I can't see, so I can't water the orchids at home. Why don't you help me take care of them? Now the orchids have all withered, it's really sad." His wife found Fong Dong's words strange and asked him how he knew about the orchids wilting. So, Fong Dong explained the reason to his wife, telling her about the small beings living inside his eyes. Due to Fong Dong's illness, his wife hadn't had time to tend to the courtyard. But upon hearing his words, she immediately went to the courtyard to check, and she indeed found that all the orchids had withered. His wife found the whole situation very strange, so she quietly hid in the house, watching Fong Dong, waiting for those small beings to appear from his eyes. After a while, she saw two tiny creatures crawling out of Fong Dong's nostrils. They were no bigger than grains of rice and made a squeaky sound as they went out the door. She watched them go further and further away until they disappeared from sight. After a while, the two tiny creatures came back, holding hands, and flew onto Fong Dong's face, just like two bees returning to their hive. This continued for 2 or 3 days. Fong Dong heard the small creature in his left eye say, "The tunnel to the outside is winding and inconvenient. Why don't we open a door ourselves to make it easier to come and go?" The small creature in his right eye replied, "The wall blocking my way is thick, and it's not easy to open it." The small creature in his left eye said, "I'll try to open a door first. If I can make a passage, you can join me." Fong Dong then felt pain in his left eye, as if it were being clawed and torn, making it impossible to open. After a while, the pain eased, and Fong Dong managed to open his eye. To his amazement, he could see the furniture clearly in his room. He was overjoyed and told his wife everything. His wife carefully examined his eyes and found that a small hole had appeared on the thick membrane of his left eye. Through this hole, he could see his bright eyeball, but it was only as big as a grain of rice. The thick membrane on his right eye, however, remained unchanged. Fong Dong now understood that the two pupils had transformed into the talking tiny people inside his eyes. They had now merged into one eye. Although he lost vision in one eye, he could see better than before. Reflecting on his past mistakes, Fang Dong became more self-restrained and better behaved. His fellow villagers praised him for his self-improvement and high moral character. At the end of the story, the author provides the following commentary. I remember there was a scholar in our village. One day, he was walking with two friends when they saw a young woman riding a donkey in the distance. The scholar playfully remarked, "There's a beauty ahead." Then, he turned to his friends and said, "Let's catch up to her and see what she's like." So, they all laughed and ran towards the young woman. After a while, they caught up to her, and the scholar realized that the young woman was actually his daughter-in-law. He felt ashamed and embarrassed, lowering his head in silence. His friends pretended not to know and made some inappropriate comments about the young woman's appearance. The scholar was extremely awkward and could only stammer, "Please stop. She is my eldest son's wife." His friends chuckled quietly and refrained from making further comments. Frivolous people often bring shame upon themselves, and this is truly ironic. As for Fang Dong, his narrowed eyes and blindness were indeed a punishment from the heavens. As for the lady of Furong City, she might have been a deity or even an incarnation of a bodhisattva. However, in the end, the tiny people formed from his pupils removed the thick membranes from his eyes. This illustrates that while spirits and gods may punish humans severely, they can also offer a chance for those who have made mistakes to reform themselves. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Tiny people speaking through eyes. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode.